It was the middle of the night when I first saw her secret. Okechi was standing by the window, her long, black hair swaying in the wind like shadows moving in the dark. But there was something else, something wet and dark creeping across the floor. She didn't notice me standing there, hidden behind the large tree outside her house. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt tight, trapped. What I saw that night was nothing I could ever forget. But now, I can't speak of it. Not to anyone, not ever. I had always known Okechi. Everyone in our village of Nukwi did. She was fierce, untouchable. Every suitor that came to ask for her hand left bruised, broken, or worse, running for his life. No one understood why she pushed everyone away so violently. She was beautiful, the kind of beauty that caused whispers among the elders and stirred the young men into bold, foolish action. But her rejection wasn't the kind that came with soft words or polite refusals. Okechi fought, and she fought hard. People said her father taught her to fight like a man, that she was a warrior in spirit. But there was more to her strength than that. There was anger, fear, and something else. I didn't understand it until that night. It all started when the wealthiest man in our neighboring village sent his son, Chidi, to court Okechi. Chidi was unlike the other men who came before him. He was brave, confident, and he wasn't afraid of Okechi's sharp tongue or her clenched fist. Everyone said that if anyone could win her heart, it was Chidi. But Okechi had different plans. The night before Chidi's visit, I was walking past Okechi's house when I saw her sitting by the fire. Her eyes were distant, staring into the flames like she could see something none of us could. I thought about saying something, but there was a chill in the air, a kind of silence that told me to keep my distance. Chidi arrived the next day, full of smiles and pride, his chest puffed out like a rooster ready for a fight. But the fight wasn't his to win. Okechi met him with the same cold eyes she always had. They spoke for a while, the village gathered around, everyone curious to see what would happen. Then, without warning, Okechi slapped Chidi across the face. It wasn't a light slap either. The sound echoed through the village, and before anyone could react, Okechi had grabbed Chidi by his arm and twisted it behind his back. He fell to the ground with a cry of pain. "She's cursed," one of the old women whispered behind me. Chidi left that day, humiliated like the rest. But this time, something changed in Okechi. I could see it. There was a fear in her eyes I hadn't noticed before. That night, I couldn't sleep. Something about the way she looked at Chidi stuck with me. It wasn't just anger. It was like she was fighting something bigger, something inside herself. I had to know more. So, I snuck out of my house and made my way to hers. I don't know what I expected to find, but what I saw was far worse than any nightmare. The night was so quiet that even the crickets seemed to have stopped their chirping. My heart pounded as I hid behind the tree, watching Okechi through the window. She stood completely still, her back to me, but there was something strange about the way she held herself. Her shoulders were stiff, and she kept her head slightly down, almost as if she was hiding her face from the moonlight. I was about to leave when something caught my eye, a dark stain spreading across the mud beneath her feet. It was like a shadow, but wetter, thicker. My throat tightened. I didn't understand what I was seeing at first. Could it be? No. It couldn't be. Okechi, the fierce and untouchable woman of our village, was bedwetting. I blinked, trying to make sense of the image in front of me. My mind raced. All those suitors she had fought off, all the violence, the anger, it was because of this. Okechi was terrified of anyone finding out. And here I was, standing in the dark, witnessing her most humiliating secret. My body wanted to move, to run away, but my feet were rooted to the spot. I couldn't stop staring. The woman everyone feared, the warrior of our village, was hiding something so small, so human. But in our village, it wasn't just more. Bedwetting was a curse, a sign of weakness. No one would ever respect her again if they knew. Suddenly, Okechi turned, her eyes scanning the dark. My heart leaped into my throat. Had she seen me? I pressed myself flat against the tree, barely daring to breathe. The moonlight fell on her face now, and for the first time, I saw something that made my stomach twist, tears. Okechi was crying. Her lips trembled as she wiped her face roughly with the back of her hand, trying to stop the tears from falling. I knew I shouldn't have been there. This was too private, too painful. But I couldn't leave. Not yet. I had to know what she would do next. Would she tell someone? Would she keep hiding? And if she found out I knew, what would she do to me? The next day, the whole village would see Okechi as they always did, fierce, untouchable, feared. But now I knew the truth. And the truth was scarier than anything I had imagined. I didn't sleep at all that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Okechi's tear-streaked face, her fist clenched in anger and shame. The fear in her eyes haunted me, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had witnessed something I shouldn't have. But I couldn't stay away either. The next morning, the village was buzzing with excitement. Chidi's humiliation was still the talk of the town, and people were laughing, mocking him for thinking he could tame Okechi. They didn't know what I knew. They didn't know the weight she carried. I stayed near the outskirts of the village that day, watching Okechi from a distance. She was walking around as usual, her head held high, her face stern. No one would ever suspect what had happened the night before. But I knew. And that knowledge made my chest feel tight, like I was holding a secret too big to keep. I tried to stay away, but as evening fell, my feet dragged me back to Okechi's hut. This time, I didn't hide behind the tree. I stood out in the open, watching her from afar. She sat outside her house, sharpening a small blade, her hands steady as ever. The look on her face was cold, distant, like she was preparing for a battle only she knew was coming. Suddenly, she looked up and saw me. For a moment, our eyes locked, and my blood ran cold. Her gaze was sharp, piercing, as if she could see right through me. I froze, unsure if I should run or stay. Then, to my surprise, she beckoned me over with a small tilt of her head. My legs felt like they were made of stone, but somehow, I managed to walk towards her. My heart pounded in my chest as I stopped a few steps away from where she sat. Okechi's eyes never left mine. "You've been watching me," she said in a low, calm voice. My mouth went dry. I wanted to deny it, to say something that would make this moment less terrifying, but the words wouldn't come. I just stood there, staring at her, too afraid to speak. She didn't wait for me to answer. "I know what you saw." My stomach dropped. How did she know? I hadn't made a sound. I hadn't. "It doesn't matter," she interrupted my thoughts, her voice cold and steady. "What matters is what you're going to do with it." I swallowed hard. What did she mean? Was she going to threaten me? Was she going to hurt me like she did the others? But instead of anger, I saw something else in her eyes. Something I hadn't expected: fear. She was afraid of what I would do, of what I might say. Okechi, the woman who had fought off every suitor, who had scared away even the bravest men, was afraid of me. "I won't tell anyone," I finally managed to whisper. She studied me for a long time, her eyes narrowing. "If you do," she said slowly, "you'll regret it." I nodded quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. I believed her. Okechi didn't make empty threats. But as I turned to leave, I couldn't help but wonder, why was she so afraid of this secret? Why was something like bedwetting enough to drive her to violence, to isolation? There had to be more. There was always more with Okechi. And as I walked away, I realized something else. Now that she knew I had seen her secret, I wasn't just a witness. I was part of the story. And I had no idea where it would lead. The days passed slowly, and the weight of the secret I carried grew heavier with each one. I did my best to avoid Okechi, but the village was small, and our paths crossed more often than I liked. Each time, her eyes would meet mine with the same unspoken warning, reminding me of the promise I had made. The villagers were still whispering about Chidi and Okechi, but they had no idea of the deeper truth. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the sky turned a deep orange, I heard the unmistakable sound of drums. A gathering was happening in the village square. I hurried toward the sound, my heart thudding in my chest. When I arrived, I saw Okechi standing in the center of a circle, her face as hard and fierce as ever. But there was something different about her now. She seemed more determined, more dangerous. The elders had gathered too, their faces grim. One of them, an old man with a long gray beard, stepped forward. "Okechi," he said, his voice low but firm. "The village has spoken. It is time for you to choose a suitor. You cannot fight forever." A hush fell over the crowd. Everyone knew what this meant. The time for Okechi's defiance was coming to an end. She could no longer refuse. I felt a chill run through me. I had seen what Okechi was hiding, and I knew why she fought so hard. But now, her secret was teetering on the edge of exposure. Okechi's eyes flickered across the crowd, and for the briefest moment, they landed on me. I swallowed hard, my stomach twisting with fear. She turned back to the elders, her voice low and controlled. "I have no desire to marry," she said, the words heavy with finality. The elder shook his head. "That is not your choice. You are part of this village. You will choose, or we will choose for you." A ripple of anticipation ran through the crowd. People were whispering, wondering who Okechi would choose. The men who had once been terrified of her now stood taller, hopeful that her resistance had finally broken. Then, without warning, Okechi stepped forward, her chin held high, her voice ringing out clear and strong. "If you must know the truth," she said, her eyes blazing with a fire that silenced the whispers. "The truth is, I have fought because I will never allow anyone to shame me for something beyond my control." The crowd fell silent, confused. Okechi's jaw clenched as she continued, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow. "Since I was a child, I have suffered from a curse. One that has followed me through every night, no matter what I do." My heart sank. She was about to tell them. Okechi, the woman who had fought so hard to hide her shame, was about to reveal the very thing she had kept secret for so long. "I am cursed," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I am cursed to wet the bed like a child. And it is that shame that I have fought to keep hidden. Not for myself, but because I know what you would do to someone like me." A gasp rippled through the crowd. People exchanged shocked glances, their faces filled with a mix of pity and disbelief. The men who had once chased after her now looked away, uncomfortable with this new reality. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. Okechi had done it. She had told the truth, something I never thought she would do. The elder stood in stunned silence for a moment, before he finally spoke. "Okechi," he said softly, "we did not know." Her eyes narrowed. "And now you do." "I have lived with this curse, and I will continue to live with it. But I will not marry. I will not allow anyone to use my weakness against me." The crowd remained silent, unsure of how to react. The fear and awe they once held for Okechi had shifted into something else, something more complicated. Some pitied her, while others seemed angry that the proud warrior they had once feared was now humanized. Then, slowly, one by one, the villagers began to leave. No one said a word. No one offered to help. They simply turned away, as if her confession had stripped her of her power. And in a way, it had. Okechi stood in the square, alone. The fire in her eyes had dimmed, and for the first time, I saw her for what she truly was, someone who had fought her whole life not just against others, but against herself. I wanted to go to her, to tell her that I understood, that I had seen her pain and her struggle. But I didn't. I couldn't. The weight of her secret still sat heavy in my chest, and the fear of what might come next kept my feet rooted to the ground. As the last of the villagers disappeared into their huts, Okechi turned and walked away, her head still held high. But I knew that beneath that proud exterior, she was shattered. And though she had revealed the truth, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle was far from over. The next morning, Okechi was gone. Her hut was empty, and no one in the village knew where she had gone. Some said she had run away, unable to face the shame. Others whispered that she had left to find a cure for her curse. But no one knew for sure. All I knew was that Okechi, the warrior who had fought so fiercely to protect her secret, had finally been defeated. Not by a suitor, not by the village, but by the truth. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comment section where you are watching us from and what you think about the story. Please subscribe, like and share to your family and friends. If you enjoyed this story, you will like this one about a slay queen who fell in love with a rich man who made her sleep with his dog. See you next time on our next story. Bye.